Everyone says Light Yagami lost because of his god complex. The guy who believed his own hype so hard he couldn't see L, then Nier, then his own mistakes coming. Textbook hubris, case closed. Except Light never believed he was God. He knew the notebook fell randomly. Ryuk tells him day one, this was boredom, not destiny. So, what if the real problem wasn't that he believed too much, but that he never believed at all? Today we're going to prove Light Yagami was the opposite of delusional, and that's exactly what destroyed him. Let's start with episode 1. Ryuk drops the Death Note into the human world because he's bored. That's it. No prophecy. No chosen one. Just a Shinigami who wants entertainment. And Light? Light hears this. He knows from the very beginning that his power is cosmically meaningless. Watch how he reacts. He doesn't fall to his knees and thank the universe. He doesn't claim destiny. He tests it. Methodically. Scientifically. Like someone who just found a loaded gun. Not someone who's been handed divine purpose. This is pragmatism, not prophecy. And here's where it gets interesting. Later in the series, we meet Teru Mikami. Mikami genuinely believes Kira is God. He prays to Light. He sees divine mission in every action. The man is a true believer. Light sees Mikami and uses him. He doesn't share that belief. He manufactures it in others because it's useful. But he never mistakes himself for what Mikami sees. Now here's where everyone gets Light wrong. They think he's delusional. They think his God complex is genuine narcissism, that he bought into his own mythology. But delusion requires belief. Light is doing something psychologically darker. He's manufacturing mythology he knows is false. Psychologists call this terror management theory. When humans face meaninglessness, we build massive structures to avoid that void. Religions, ideologies, legacies. But here's the twist with Light. He's building his new world while knowing it's a construction. He's manufacturing meaning he doesn't believe in. That's not delusion. That's conscious fraud. Think about it. A random kid, a random notebook, random death god, random boredom. The alternative, accepting that he's just some teenager who happened to pick up a supernatural weapon, is unbearable. So he retrofits meaning onto chaos. He turns accident into destiny, but only in the story he tells everyone else. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Light isn't corrupted by power. He's corrupted by trying to justify power he knows he doesn't deserve. Every speech about justice, every claim about the new world, every I am God declaration, those aren't symptoms of believing too much. They're symptoms of believing too little and desperately trying to compensate. Because deep down, he knows what Ryuk knows. This was always random. But if Light knew he wasn't chosen, why did he act like a god anyway? Why commit so completely to a role he knew was fake? Because here's what makes Light Yagami truly terrifying. Self-aware role-playing under power is more corrupting than genuine delusion. Remember the Lindell Taylor moment? L's first move. A death row inmate pretends to be the real L on live television, and Light kills him instantly. Everyone reads this as arrogance. Light couldn't resist proving his power. But look closer. Light doesn't kill Lindell Taylor because he believes he's judge, jury, and executioner. He kills him because his performance as judge is being challenged. Someone's calling his bluff on live TV. The role is threatened, so the role reacts. This happens over and over. Watch how Light compartmentalizes. Boyfriend Light, student Light, son Light, Kira Light. These aren't multiple personalities. They're conscious masks he puts on and takes off depending on who's watching. And we know they're conscious because of what happens in the Yotsuba arc. When Light loses his memories of the Death Note, he becomes someone else entirely. Moral, genuinely collaborative. He's shocked by Kira's methods. The God complex wasn't a personality trait that ran so deep it survived amnesia. It was a choice he was making every single day. Now here's where the neuroscience gets really messed up. A study found something disturbing. People who hold power while knowing they don't deserve it morally degrade faster than actual narcissists with genuine God complexes. Think about that paradox. A real narcissist, someone who genuinely believes they're chosen, is more stable, more consistent, less likely to lash out randomly. Because they're not protecting a lie. They're living their truth, however delusional. Light has to protect the lie every second of every day. When you know you're not legitimate, every challenge feels existential. You can't distinguish between threats to your safety and threats to your story. Look at how Light treats L. He is intellectually Light's equal, probably his superior. And Light knows this. Every interaction with L is a reminder that the mythology might not hold, that someone can see through the performance. So Light doesn't kill L because L is a threat to his life. He kills L because L makes him feel like an imposter, And watch what happens right after. That's not triumph. That's not the laugh of someone who just won. That's relief. The one person who could see through the act is gone. The person who made him feel like he was faking it, who reflected back his own self-awareness of the fraud, is finally dead. But here's the thing about maintaining a lie instead of a belief. Lies are exhausting. By the time we get to Near and Mello, Light is sloppy. He's making mistakes he would never have made in the first half of the series. And it's not because he got arrogant. It's because he's been performing for years now and the cognitive load is breaking him down. When you genuinely believe something, it's effortless. Your actions align with your worldview automatically. But when you're performing something you know is false, every decision requires double-checking the script. Every interaction is a test of whether you're staying in character. So here's the thing everyone misses. Light's God complex? That's not narcissism, that's imposter syndrome, the most dangerous kind. Because narcissists with genuine delusions are predictable. They have internal logic. They believe their own story, so they follow it consistently. But imposter syndrome plus power? That creates someone who can't afford to be questioned, can't afford to show weakness, can't afford to let anyone get close enough to see the gap between performance and reality. They become paranoid, aggressive, constantly checking if the mask is slipping. And that makes them exponentially more dangerous. So if Light knew he was performing, why couldn't he just stop? Why did the mask consume him? So here's the trap. Once you commit to a false narrative of meaning, stopping means confronting the void you were running from. Watch what Near does in the finale. He doesn't just expose Light's mistakes. He doesn't just prove Mikami was the second Kira or that the notebook was modified. He exposes the randomness. You're just a murderer, not a god, not justice, not destiny, just a murderer who happened to find a notebook. And Light breaks, because Near is saying out loud what Light has always known but could never admit, that there was no grand design, no chosen one narrative, just chaos and violence dressed up as ideology. And watch what he does in his final moments. He doesn't defend his ideology. He doesn't give some speech about justice or the new world or how history will vindicate him. He begs Ryuk, the source of the randomness, the bored Shinigami who dropped this whole thing into his lap for entertainment. He begs the embodiment of meaninglessness to save him. And Ryuk's final line to him? You were interesting, not righteous, not chosen, not important. Interesting. The ultimate confirmation that there was never meaning, just entertainment. This is what happens in manga, actually. Light escaping and seeing visions of his younger self is anime only. In manga, Light dies pretty pathetically. This is the real tragedy of Light Yagami. He couldn't stop being Kira because stopping meant admitting the last 6 years meant nothing. Every person he killed, his father, L, Naomi Misora, criminals, innocents, everyone. Every relationship he destroyed, every part of himself he sacrificed. All of it would become just random violence. Look at what happens when his father dies. Light performs grief. He even sheds real tears. But here's what's messed up. Those tears aren't just performance. Part of Light genuinely mourns. Because his father died believing the lie. Died believing Light was innocent. And Light can't even honor that sacrifice by admitting the truth. Because that would mean his father died for nothing. That everyone who believed in him was a fool. Existential sunk cost fallacy. We double down on meaningless commitments because admitting they were meaningless is unbearable. The more you've sacrificed for the lie, the more trapped you become. Light didn't lose because he was too convinced. He lost because he was never convinced, and that kept him from adapting. Look at L. He has no mythology. He doesn't call himself the world's greatest detective. He doesn't perform genius. He just is. When something doesn't work, he pivots. He changes strategy. He admits when he's wrong. Remember when he apologizes to Light during the confinement? A genuine apology because his theory was wrong. No performance, no protecting his ego. He's fluid because he's not protecting a story about himself. Light can't do that. Every admission of error cracks the foundation. Every pivot looks like weakness. Because he's not being Kira, he's playing Kira. And the performance doesn't allow for improvisation. But Light? Light never changes strategy fundamentally. He just escalates the same performance, gets more theatrical, more elaborate, more desperate. When his plans fail, he doesn't question the mission. He questions his acting. You want to see this in action? The potato chip scene. Everyone loves this scene, memes it, celebrates Light's theatrical genius. But watch what's happening. He's alone. The cameras watching him are hidden. No one can see this performance. But Light still makes it dramatic. still delivers the line with theatrical flair. Because he's not living his life anymore, he's performing it for an audience that only exists in his head. That's not confidence. That's someone so deep in the role they can't find the exit anymore. Genuine delusion makes you flexible in a weird way. If you truly believe you're chosen, you can interpret any setback as a test, any failure as part of a bigger plan. You bend reality to fit your belief. But when you know you're performing, you become rigid, because you're not protecting a worldview. You're protecting a script. And scripts don't improvise well. So here's what Death Note shows us. A god complex might have saved Light Yagami. Because if he genuinely believed, if he'd had the narcissistic delusion everyone accuses him of, he could have acted with faith, made bold moves, adapted, believed his own mythology enough to be flexible within it. Instead, he acted with fear. The fear of being exposed as nothing special at all. And that fear made him predictable, paranoid, brittle. It made him exactly the kind of person Nier could corner in a warehouse and dismantle with logic. Because logic doesn't work on true believers, but it works perfectly on someone who's been faking it the whole time. Which brings us to the most disturbing question this anime asks. So what is Death Note about? It's not a cautionary tale about power corrupting. It's about what happens when power finds someone who knows they don't deserve it, and they try to deserve it anyway. Light Yagami is every person who's stumbled into power through luck, not merit, inheritance, right place, right time, knowing the right people, being born into the right circumstances. His descent isn't unique to him. It's the descent of anyone trying to retroactively justify random fortune. And here's the really uncomfortable part. We sympathize with Light. A lot of us do, even when we know we shouldn't. But it's not because we'd use the Death Note the same way. It's because we recognize the performance. We've all done this. Maybe not at his scale, but we've all pretended our achievements were destiny when we knew they were luck. We've all taken credit for things that fell into our lap. We've all constructed narratives about why we deserve what we have, when deep down we know how random it really was. Light just couldn't stop performing. And this is why imposter syndrome among the powerful is so dangerous in the real world. It doesn't make them humble, it makes them vicious. Because when you know you're a fraud, everyone becomes a threat to your story. Every question is an attack. Every challenge is existential. You can't afford vulnerability. You can't afford to admit mistakes. You have to double down, escalate, eliminate the threats, not to your safety, but to your narrative. A study found that leaders who feel illegitimate in their roles show increased aggression, decreased empathy, and higher rates of ethical violations compared to leaders with genuine confidence. Light Yagami isn't an aberration, he's a pattern. Think about the people with real power in our world. CEOs, politicians, influencers, people born into generational wealth. How many of them do you think genuinely believe they earned it? And how many are just better actors than Light Yagami? Better at hiding the terror, better at eliminating threats to the narrative before those threats can speak. Maybe the real monster was never the Death Note. Maybe it was always the gap between the power Light had and the story he told himself about why he deserved it. The Notebook just made that gap visible. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you see Death Note or power or yourself, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more uncomfortable truths about the stories we tell ourselves. And if you want to see another character who everyone misunderstands because they stop at the surface reading, check out our video on the real reason Gojo Satoru lost, because it's not about being the strongest. It's about what happens when being the strongest is the only thing you know how to be. See you there.